Let us be careful. The contexts change. They decided to go AES, fine, granted. But what has Mahama done since he took over power in January? He's been courting them, trying to mend fences, invited them over to Accra recently. You know, this year is the 50th anniversary of ECOWAS, the founding of ECOWAS. So it is still going on. You see, we share the same space.
True.
You know, for security concerns. There are so many convergences, as it were. So whether you're part of ECOWAS or not, we're going to have to find a strategy of working collaboratively, really, for the sake of the whole region. So sooner or later it's going to come to that, isn't it?
Absolutely. It was Winston Churchill who said that jaw is better than war.
Absolutely.
So it's always good, and it always ends there. You have to sit around the table and discuss about it. We have seen the war in Ukraine. We've seen the war in Sudan. We have seen all these conflicts. How do they end up? People have to sit down and come to an agreement that is civilization. Once we lose that civility, the conflict exacerbates, and who are the people that suffers is women, children, and the elderly. So therefore, it's always good to avert conflict. And we have seen that in our sub-region, there has been potential conflicts, but some of them are very internal, like the issues of terrorism within these states of Mali, Burkina, and some of these states. Is very, they're living under very strenuous and very serious dilemma as to how are they going to approach to resolve these issues, because they have insurgents penetrating into their states and then causing havoc. So what do they do? So these are the dilemma that, you know, they are faced with. So the military has a role to play, but also the civilians do contribute sometimes in creating this kind of situations. Because where democracy dies, then there is a vacuum, and then enters the role of the military. And then you know the role of the military, especially in Africa. The history, it has not been very, very good if you look at their track record. So that is why they say, you know, it has to be the voice of the people that should be amplified. The sovereignty of the people must be asserted, and they should determine the type of governance that should be operating in their states. And that is why they are calling them, engaging them. They cannot continue for perpetuity to be in power without consulting the people and ensuring that there is democracy. They have to revert back to the people, let them determine and decide the type of governance they want. So that is why they are being engaged, so that other people, other countries will not follow the same route, and then the military get involved. Let there be voices, let there be opposing voices echoed, let us accommodate each other in a democratic setting, and that would avert all that.
I think there should be a solution, and there should be an agreement. Here, what is more important is the people that you are governing at the end of the time, whether they are satisfied with how you govern them or not. And there's something that we should avoid too, as in our region. I mean, coups and counter coups. Recently, we've seen the attempted coup in Burkina. So, I mean, all those things are things that are really dragging, you know, this West African state.
Yeah, but these coups, what brings it about? You have to understand. Look at Ivory Coast, for instance. Ouattara came and then he's in power. Now this guy, Cham, want to contest. They're saying that he's not a Senegal, he's not an Ivorian national. It is this type of issues that also involve the military into the melee of things. And this is the things that we must avoid. Thus, self-perpetuation also is a form of coup d'etat in certain instances that the civilian do create. They create that invitation for the army to come and have a role. And we must avoid that. Where there is democracy, they must allow all these people to play their own role and let the people decide and determine who is going to govern them. And Ivory Coast now, if you look at the reports, now Cham is no longer Blair Godet and who else? Laurent Gbagbo. All these are written off to participate. These are the type of things that creates conflict in the region, and we must avoid it. You know, self-perpetuation is an issue.
That's it, and there is sort of also a regional dimension. It is very curious that when the security minister of Burkina Faso regarding this alleged foiled coup. That's what they said. Then he said they were blaming supposed masterminds in Ivory Coast. It's curious that we were just talking about Ivory Coast. When you look at DRC, you have all the religious regional players there. Rwanda, Uganda, they are all in there.
Burundi,
so
yeah.
this is really what the problem is. There is a kind of regional dimension to these issues. They are not purely internal, it appears. So it makes it much more complex. It is really at this point that you need cool heads, brilliant, skillful leaders who would try to steer things in the best way possible for us to avoid the worst possible consequences. That's really all that we can do now. It seems damage limitation, but it's like a tinderbox in some areas. Even South Sudan now.
That's exactly what I was going
South
to
Sudan,
point
look
out.
at what's going. They could be backsliding into war.
And these wars don't help. They create more damage, especially the impoverished African people. The resources, they're very meager. Then you start destruction of homes, of infrastructure, of everything. We will go back into decades of bombing, self-inflicted, injuries, so to speak, is what we, Africans are good at. And it must stop now. The African people are tired of going through the motions of famine, hunger, disease, starvation, all because of war and more wars.
Absolutely.
When do we get to resolve this?
Exactly. I mean, on the Standards newspaper, Senegal and Gambia better off in mutual defense agreement. Colonel Faye.
I think we've always known that, haven't we? the number of instruments we've signed, oh my God, must be running into their scores.
They've always had agreements,
we've always had that.
That military.
In every area, really, because of...
Well, it's a main headline on the Standard newspaper. Police deny freeing suspected gays.
Well, maybe at least they come out to clarify.
What does that mean? Yes.
Speculation sometimes.
I really have no idea.
There is a video circulating on social media. I mean, the PIU, probably the tourism security unit, the section arrested, men, allegedly, on something inappropriate, doing something inappropriate. So now I think they're denying that they didn't release those people. So it's good that they've clarified it. PPP, it's like there's a lot of things happening around the PPP party, Recently they've chosen a party leader, and at the same time, we can see the by-election in Half-Dry Ward. We can see how active their candidate is ready and looking forward to that election. So
yeah, they are a skeleton of their past. PPP used to be the party, post-independence, but that's the nature of life and evolution.
Things change.
Yes, absolutely. Now you have new players, new kids on the block, and their time has come and gone, I guess. But they're still having a role in some areas, pockets. Like, for instance, in Banjul North, they still hold the seat because the sitting MP is a PPP. That is Tumanjai.
Banjul South.
Banjul South, yeah. And that is where the by-election is taking place.
That's where the by-election is taking place.
So that is one area that they're still latching on, holding on to. So, but it's that period, of politics. So
absolutely.
Going into 2026.
That's it. And it was interesting that UDP, the biggest party really in the country, well,
did not.
It's a contest perhaps now between UDP and NPP, I suppose. But look at it. They didn't put up a candidate. They're supporting the PPP candidate.
Tactical alliances.
Tactical alliance.
So
absolutely.
Tactical
because one would have thought that, just as you said now with the PPP, it's a skeleton, it's a shadow of what it was before. And now UDP, is the party around today. One would have thought that the UDP would have stood, but they recognize that perhaps in Banjul, particularly that ward, a PPP person
sometimes
could
you
have
can
a very
have
good
tactical
chance.
alliances, where you withdraw to give
power to the
opportunity to other. Well, it's going to be heavily contested if we go by past by elections, these parties are taking it very seriously.
Well, that's what I even wanted to say.
Yeah.
I mean, before by-elections are not, I mean, this way, handled this way, but now the
well, you have to understand the period. We are heading into
Exactly.
2026, so it's mind games
so
now.
timing matters
yes.
with these things, whether they'll be significant or not.
They're trying to impose their importance to say, look, we're still...
Exactly. So there is a lady, the deportation of Gambian woman in UK cancelled, but bigger issues remain.
Well, what are those bigger issues?
Yeah, so it's important for us to delve into the newspaper to know what are those bigger issues. Yeah, so I mean, let's take a look at this. The Gambia Association of Local Government Authorities, you know, they called on a particular conference or a meeting to strategize for resource mobilization and sustainability. You know, how to strategize it, mobilize it, and, you know, to see how best to sustain it, you know, at some point.
Yes, but I hope that one of the strategies would be to sort of maybe amend, is it the Local Governments Act 2002? That certain things must be amended, yes, and they must have more money so that they can take care of their localities, if you like. Oh, absolutely. We've seen something, some of them have been really complaining for a while now, because everything we want to channel, we want to bring efficiency into the system, and we want to channel all payments, if you like, into GRA. So the kind of money perhaps that used to go to local government, now it is going straight to central government. So there's not much funding there. But you really need a strong local government so that you can implement your policies evenly across the country, you know what I mean? So you walk through local government, because it's through local government, then each area would know what are your priorities. This is where you can be subtler.
Mr. Ka, what will happen? You know? What will happen if the local government have a different view and agenda with the central government itself?
Well, you know, they have been defined by law. Their roles are distinct. But, you know, one cannot exist without the other, especially local government. Sometimes they may want to implement certain projects and programs, but, you know, central government is very powerful, because if you look at the context of Gambia, the devolution is not yet 100%. So most of their funding or sources have to come from central government. This is where sometimes the conflict and the push and pull comes into play. So they want to do this, and central government want to put their foot down. We just see recently the push and pull at the Makati Square, you know, and central government have now decided to allow the Banjul City Council to continue, you know, with that autonomous responsibility to, you know, to work together. So there have to be areas in which they have to work together in order to impact the lives of the people. But where there are serious conflicts and contradictions, then the people, is the grass that suffers when two elephants decided to fight. So this is the consequences, you know, which sometimes is impacting the lives of the people. So it's important sometimes they exercise maturity and understand that, you know, each have a role and responsibility, and they're all there for the greater good of the people and impact the lives of the people. So they have to work sometimes in tandem. Sometimes, of course, the politics, the rivalry will come into play, and that will surface. But at the end of the day, what is important is the services that they provide for the people, and they must have to work.
Absolutely. I mean, they must have to work.
Structurally, we know the administrative structure we inherited from our colonial masters. We didn't invent this. We got it from former rulers. And there's a logic behind it must work, why it must work in a certain way. We are defying that logic. That is why our institutions are not working. You are not going to see the benefits. There's a logic why things work the way they do. But here, everything seems to be, I don't know, contaminated. I don't know what to call it, but it's not working. So we can say whatever we want. For instance, take smoking law, anti-smoking laws. The best bodies everywhere in the world who would implement local authorities, because it should take care of your little patch. You know, the central authorities once in a while, they come on a campaign. For what, 2-3 days you're gone, we start all over again. It's not been effective because the implementation mechanism is faulty, it's flawed. That is why it's not working. So local government must work. We must find a way of working with government. It doesn't matter what party you belong to. You know what I mean?
True.
So you just focus on the rational situation and deal with it rationally. All over the world,
But it would
have Labour and Conservatives working.
It would have been,
Britain, for
I think it would have been a cordial relation when a party controls the local government. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that
That's
way.
incestuous.
Yes, it
That's
doesn't have to
awful.
work that way. I know. I mean, you must have people who have different views. You know, from
local
how you
issues
think,
are very contextualized.
Very
They are
contextual,
different.
exactly.
They cannot be reflective of the larger community. What you need in Bundung and Dipakunda
Might
and
be
Banjul
different.
are different. So the people that provide, that's why bylaws exist, so that they can operate within those bylaws, like making sure that you keep the area clean, you know, markets, you know, garages, all these are organized within there. And it works very well in most democracies.
Exactly.
That's not to say that the rivalry will not be
It
there.
will always be there.
Just like central government have opposition, they will also have opposition.
but it keeps
that
the
will
job
challenge.
going.
Exactly.
It keeps the work going.
It
Yes.
should.
It's more
That's why we
efficient,
say
isn't it?
majority has to come into play, and the rivalry be subsumed after the election is come and gone. Let them allow each to do their own responsibilities and duties and discharge it for the greater good of the people. That's all.
True. So, I mean, what is happening today? 24th April is not a public holiday for a newspaper on their
Because it's Republican.
on
yeah,
their
I think.
Absolutely.
on their
You know, they've been
editorial.
saying this for a long
it,
time now.
it used
isn't
to
it?
be, you know,
Republic Day.
you have to understand the distinction of Republican Day as the day really when independence per se, in essence, was attained. Because that was the day when the monarchy of the United Kingdom no longer have any legislative authority over the sovereignty of the Gambia. That was the beginning of the end of colonialism. That was literally the end in terms of, you know, legal definition. That is why they are adamant. And it used to be a very important day in the past. They used to have that. People of older generations can remember when they used to have Republican Day and they used to celebrate it. But it got subsumed over the years because of 18th February became the day that was dominant and prominent in terms of celebration. So its relevance now is more or less underneath
it's the
radar.
Republican Day.
Yes.
Well, Republican Day, Republic Day. I know Halifa Saleh, for one, we have to say that for a very long time he's been saying that, that our Independence Day is only 24th of April.
In an academic argument, yeah.
Well, and
18th of February.
it's coming from Foroya, Halifa Saleh's
Yes, I
newspaper.
know.
It's not Halifa Saleh's newspaper, it's for
Well, Foroya.
Well, Foroya, I
Yes.
mean, he's part of the, I mean, yeah.
It's an organ
Yeah,
of
you can-
PDOIS.
you can-
I think we
you can
can
extricate
safely
Halifa
say
from-
that. It's the organ of the
yeah.
PDOIS. And yes, and to me, it is true. That is very true, but not really significant. This is all about symbolisms. The symbolism of 1965, when we had the Duke of Kent hand over the instruments. So that was an important symbolism, the instrument of independence to Sadara Kairabajawara. So effective power had transferred. The Queen was merely ceremonial. The Queen couldn't say anything whatsoever, really, about the Gambia, just as in Britain right now. She's the Queen, but absolute zero power. You know? When she goes to Parliament and reads whatever she does, that's written by the government. You cannot change a single thing. So this was it.
Yeah, but that transitional phase, we still had Safariman Singate, who
Yes,
was the governor and still
Absolutely.
in charge of legislative responsibility. So its significance was very legal and it was real at that time. So that must be underlined and the emphasis must be put there that there has to be that demarcation completely when that is why it exists. It did not exist in a vacuum. Republican Day is for a reason, because constitutionally, technically, legally, that was the day that we really have our sovereignty defined in law.
But you see, this is the key. And Jawara sort of tackles this in his book. It's very interesting about when Safari Monk came along. Afterwards, I think there was some kind of antagonism between the two because Safari Monk, the sort of powers, privileges that's it, was trying to claim. Then Sadauda had to remind him that, nope, it's not quite like that anymore. It's not quite like, see, but this was it. You're merely ceremonial. You know, I don't know, when we have Gente, we send you. But the real work, that's for us. So effective power had transferred, essentially. You know what I mean? So, but we understand the symbolism. I know exactly what Halifa is saying or what PDOIS is saying.
For instance, if you take
the head
Australia,
of state,
Australia still is under the monarchy of Great Britain.
Yeah.
Canada, the same thing, because they haven't had republican status yet. If they need to, they have to go into a referendum. So therefore, it's important. You are emphasizing the symbolic aspect, but there are also legal and juridical aspect to it, and that's significant. That the head of state of Canada and this head of state of Australia is still the king of the United Kingdom. That's quite significant, and I assume Jamaica. So that's why countries go into a referendum in order to determine their sovereign status away from the monarchy.
Oh, absolutely true. But look at Australia. Look at them. They're still under the the Queen. It seems it doesn't matter. They don't care. They're running themselves. The Queen is not telling them anything. Is not telling them anything.
Well, sometimes
they're running themselves.
in UK,
sometimes
that's it exactly. So it doesn't matter.
But sometimes these things they are just ceremonial.
Symbolism. That's what I mean.
Mr. Khan.
It's not substantive.
All right. So, Mr. Khan, thank you very much. Thank you for reviewing the stories with us. And, hope to engage you more probably next week. So, viewers, will take a short break. After the break, we're talking to Parmakan Khan from IEC. We'll be talking about the half-die by-elections. We'll be right back.
QMoney is back again with its easy-to-use, secure and convenient mobile app that allows you to carry out all your transactions. No matter where you are or what time it is, you can always access your funds. With the new QMoney app, you can cash in and out, buy credit, buy QPower, shop, make payments, and so much more. You can also send QMoney, pay bills, receive international remittances, and transfer cash to others. Just download the app from your Play Store or App Store and get started. For more information, call customer care on 133. QMoney, Sinu Kalpe. We innovate, others follow.
QCell moy suñu boss. QCell moy suñu boss. QCell moy suñu boss. Soro go ebe dawa full network suda tili QCell ni lafta diamla wati jamala mune diata QCell most reliable network jumala keta wati QCell wo quality man nyon soto jam ona manke QCell hanibe wuloni farole kono walante be bakono jala fayola network ko se taria QCell suñu boss ñofi njeka indi 3G ñu delu taxi 4G plus and now we bring you 5G 5G first and only 5G provider suñu boss itela follow adi doron nesa keno suñu boss Gambia bela nyon tawo fele QCell suñu boss ko fasunta buka busi QCell suñu boss itela molti milka kukutol nati Gambia QCell meta lori la kiliano yele imanyina amanda wala itela ka quality dila dadi ma itele silo wala wodol mume be keno ma QCell suñu boss QCell suñu boss QCell suñu boss QCell suñu boss connection be bambandi QCell suñu boss QCell most innovative QCell suñu boss.
We are back. You are watching QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Obalde. Now let's move to the third segment of this program. That is the Banjul half-die by-election on Saturday. And of course, we have Parmakan Khan in the studios with us, communication from the Independent Electoral Commission. I mean, the last time we engage you on this program, Scan, I think was the Masembe election.
Masembe, actually. Yes.
Masembe, Kiang Masembe.
Masembe, in February.
Yeah, so it's good to have you here again. How are you doing?
Yes, fine, thank you, and thank you for having me once again.
Yes. So, how is the preparation now? Saturday is election, and I hope the IEC got everything to check and everything is prepared on the ground for easy and fair elections.
Yes, thank you very much. I just have to say it's voting time once again, and just for a while because it's a by-election. For now, I think we are fully prepared. I think all is going on course, all is going on well for now. So we only hope to go out on Saturday, 26th of April 2025, to conduct the vote in Banjul. This is to elect the councillor for Half-Die Ward, which is one of the constituency, one of the wards in the Banjul South constituency. Because Banjul South, we know we have 3 wards in Banjul South: the Jollof Town Ward, Portuguese Town Ward, and Half-Die Ward. So for now, it's all about Half-Die Ward, and I would say all eyes are on Half-Die Ward for the conduct of the by-election on Saturday 26th, which is just 2 days from now.
Okay, all right. We want to understand, what leads to the by-election at the moment. I mean, what leads to it?
Normally, a by-election, according to law, is as a result of a vacancy being created in a particular voting area. This could be a constituency, this could be a ward, or this could be even, normally, wards and constituencies. Normally, when there is a vacancy, the relevant authority would notice the IEC of that particular vacancy, and once this is done, some legal procedures are undertaken. Once this is completed, then it means the by-election is set to fill such a vacancy. So in this case, it's about Half-Die Ward, in which there was a vacancy for the seat of the councillor for the ward. Of course, once the IEC received notification from the council, that's from relevant authorities, that there was a vacancy in Half-Die Ward, then election was announced for this particular ward. And according to law, once the notice had been received by the IEC, then within 60 days, then a by-election should be conducted. So these have been some of the procedures that were put in place. And right now is about conducting the election, and that the people of Half-Die Ward to come out in their numbers and to select their candidate or as their councillor for the said ward.
Yes, you've given us generally why by-elections take place. But in this particular specific one, what was the information you got regarding this Half-Die Ward?
Actually, like as a commission, we would not like to go in detail. Why?
So this is a public information,
normally,
you mean?
Yes, it's public, of course, but for our focus is more on holding the elections based on the relevant legal provisions. And of course, we know the councillor, I think, was not available for the time, and we received notification from the council that the particular councillor was not in office, I think, for some period, according to the regulations, and as a result of a vacancy. So the IEC, as per the law, would act on such a notice, which would also need being gazetted. And once this is done, then all is open to conduct a by-election.
Okay, so we move on. Saturday will be the election. Around this time, what are some of sort of the key features that are normally in place to show that you're ready for Saturday?
Yes, very well. Normally there is this engagement with the stakeholders, which is ongoing. People have been engaged, the relevant stakeholders, political parties, the CSOs, even the observers. Some people are even, or some organizations are even applying for accreditation to observe the process. And of course the media. I'm yet to see some of the media, like QTV. I'm yet to receive your application for accreditation for coverage. But normally it's an ongoing process, and of course the doors are open so that all stakeholders can be part of the process. You know, normally IEC, we take pride of one thing, that we make elections as best as we can to be inclusive and to be also transparent. So this is the trajectory that we are taking. And of course, it's all going on course. Right now, aside from the engagements, we also have the field activities ongoing. You know, like you may see me, I'm in my IC jacket, bloodproof jacket. So these are for field operations. Right now.
Such as what? Give us some flavor of what do you mean by field activities? Doing what?
The field activities, one, it needs like to go at the environment in the ground, on the ground to see what's available. How do you place the polling station? What are the relevant facilities needed to make sure that people can have easy access to the polling station on voting day?
Including people in wheelchairs?
Absolutely.
The disabled?
Very well, very well. Including people with wheelchair, people on wheelchair, including the elderly. Making sure that polling stations are located at places where they can be easily accessed by all, regardless of whether you are on a wheelchair or whether you walk on crutches or whether you need support. So these are one of the requirements that we look out at this time, that polling stations will make sure that they are really accessible as much as possible to every voter who comes out to vote. And also, as part of the other preparations, right now we're having a training program going in Banjul. Because in elections, there is one thing, we train and train and train. Because I'm sure you may agree with me that in elections, there is zero room for error. So this is why we always, go all out to train our staff, making sure that they are really au fait with the procedure and the processes that they're supposed to fully observe on voting day. So right now, these are some of the activities ongoing at the moment.
So how many polling stations are we going to have in Halfdai ward? And if possible, can you give us the number of registered voters in Halfdai?
Voters, yes, very well. Halfdai ward is having 3 polling stations, actually, rather a small ward. But of course, for us, no election is small, huh? Because it's about the rights of people, their political rights, making sure that every registered voter has a right to vote, and once he or she comes out to vote, his rights are respected. Then also, when it comes to the number of votes for Halfdai ward has about 1,720 registered voters, about 1,700 actually. So these are within the 3 police stations of Halfdai ward. Of course, they are located around the KG5 area. So this is where we will be expected people to come out to vote on election day on Saturday.
So what are we going to do to make sure there is transparency when it comes to vote counting?
Yes, normally transparency is our watchword throughout the whole process of voting and elections in particular. So voting actually, I would say, starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and ends by 5 o'clock in the evening. And once voting is concluded, there is what we call counting on the spot. That is, people would vote at a particular station, and once they are done, immediately after that, then their votes would be counted on the spot. Of course, sometimes in the presence of the stakeholders. That's the transparency that we are always clamoring about. So that the counting process is conducted, openly. People can see, and the parties or candidates can have their agents representing them to make sure that, yes, these are the votes counted for my party or for my candidate at this particular polling station. And once this is done at the level of the polling station, then there is another level that we call the collation of votes, in which we have to tally or we have to add the votes for the various polling stations to have a general or a total of votes for the entire voting area. So in this case, for the Halfdai ward, we would expect votes to be counted on the spot at all the 3 polling stations in Halfdai ward. And once this is concluded, then we move to the collation where we collate all the votes for the 2 candidates. Actually, we have 2 candidates contesting. 2 candidates, one from the NPP and one from the PPP. Okay. So it's a 2-horse race, as some would say. So we expect the votes to be counted transparently and also accurately as possible, so that once this is done, the votes are tallied, they are collated, and once this is done, then they would be out for announcement or declaration by the appropriate authority.
So they are observers?
Yes, very well. We have some observers. People, organizations are still applying for accreditation. Usually they are domestic observers. Normally, By-elections is normally the domestic observers that would like to observe. So this may be in private individuals or even organizations. CSOs, for example, some of them have actually applied, and we are in the process of accrediting some of them.
What time would the polling booths open?
Polling opens at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they will close at 5 o'clock in the evening. And 5 o'clock is the official closing time. Although if people are still in the queue by 5 o'clock, they will be allowed to cast their vote once they are in at the polling station before 5 o'clock. So this makes sure that people who are at the polling station, they are served and they are given their rights, political rights. They are given the rights to cast their votes.
So what are we doing to prevent voter intimidation or fraud?
Voter intimidation, I would say the campaign has already started, and it even ends today. Campaign started since the 24th of April, 14th of April, and campaign ends today by midnight. That's 24th of April 2025 by 12 o'clock midnight. So I would say campaign for the whole period, campaign have been very, very smooth, very much cordial. And just to announce that there was not a single incident of violence, of any negative report received so far during this entire process or during this entire period. So I think the issue of voter intimidation for now, or as some would say, voter inducement, we are yet to see any of this for now.
But what I wonder though, sort of, I think you've done this sort of thing a few times now. In the preparatory stage now, what have been some of sort of the usual problems you encounter, or the recurrent problems that you tend to encounter in the preparatory stage towards an election?
Yes, normally some of the problems, I think these are problems that we have to grapple with because they come with elections. Elections is all about the noise, it's all about the chaos, it's all about the false news. Of course, these are some of the challenges. Even though we are yet to see most of these things happen in half-die ward, actually. Because normally in elections, usually problems encountered would include some forms of violence, voter violence. And I would have to say that I think in the Gambia, the violence have been very minimal compared to what we see in other countries. And again, the main issue, I would say, a challenging issue would be the issue of the fake news, which trend on the social media handles or social media platforms. These are some of the key challenges that we face in terms of elections management in the Gambia. But however, as a commission, we normally come out at the appropriate time to make clarifications or also to set the record straight in terms of false information or in terms of fake news in the electoral process. But thank God, afterward, we are yet to see
any issue. So how will voters report issues, if there are issues? What procedures should they take?
It's a simple procedure. Voters, I think they have an access to our office in Banjul. Banjul has an election office for the IEC. It's in Tobacco Road. They can walk in to register their complaint or whatever. They can even write to the commission, to the chairman actually. That's through the email and the telephone numbers and all that. And again, when it comes to the political parties or the candidates, they also have the access to lodge whatever complaint they would like to do in terms of when they see any anomaly or whether they have some grievances during this process. It's an open door policy, I would say, at the IEC, that people can always, come out or to forward their issues, and that we will try to address these issues according to law or according to...
Oh my God, I just want to ask this question. It might sound funny. The IEC, what do you people do apart from elections?
Very well.
I wonder sometimes.
It's a very common question for many people who don't know about elections. Of course, elections is within a cycle. Some countries 5 years, some 4 years, some 7 years. Gambia, our cycle is 5 years.
Yes.
So you would say, okay, this is only 1 day in 5 years. What do you do
after that?
Very well.
Yeah.
So I would say election is not about an event, not about just that 1 day. It takes a whole lot of issues. Planning, and doing a lot of administrative work in terms of preparing for that 1 day or for those few days. Like the presidential election is done one day, and after 1 or 2 months later, we have the National Assembly, and also the local government after 1 year. Now I think it's just after some months, I would say. But normally it's an ongoing process. This is why we even say the election process. It's a process, and we have a lot of activities in this process. Right now, I would say the engagements are continuing with the stakeholders. Stakeholders bring up their issues. There are political parties which are aspiring to be registered, and we have to do a whole lot of admin work to make sure that they comply with the law. We also have this continuous voter education.
Okay.
Yeah, to get people, understand the process well before election day.
Okay.
After 5 years or after 4 years. So these are some of the issues. And we also have partner engagements with a lot of stakeholders. So I would say this is a process that, keeps on unfolding every day of
I
the
keep
year.
wondering, okay, I see after election they go back to their houses or they sit in the office without doing anything. I wonder.
Very well.
Because
very
you
well.
are more, seen when it is election.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there was this program we went to in South Africa. So the guy is one of the admin officers. He was saying, okay, what do you do when there's election? He said, okay, you ask, what is the army doing when there is no war? So the army, you don't see them outside, but they are doing a lot of work, behind the scenes. So it's similar scenario. That ISC comes open, during a few months of elections, but also we have ongoing programs throughout the year leading to the election day after 5 years. And actually right now I know it's 2026 that we are preparing. A lot of plans are ongoing, a lot of activities are ongoing behind the scenes, so that once the time is up, we are fully ready to deliver as expected.
Absolutely. Makan Khan, thank you very much for coming on QTV this morning and enlightening us on the by-election. I made a big confusion this morning. I said, is it Banjul half-die? Which area is
Banjul
it
South,
located?
yes.
No,
Banjul North?
He said Banjul North.
I
Yes,
said
it's
Banjul
Banjul
North.
South.
I nearly jumped out
Wow,
of my
Banjul rectified me and said the South, not the North, my brother.
Yes, Banjul South. very well.
Banjul dafa chok up torop way.
Chok up the next
Banjul.
It's small.
Tubabe len
nice.
Exactly.
All right, so viewers, we'll take a short break. After the break then, we'll go in for the last segment of this program. And the last segment will be World Malaria Day. And we're talking to the country rep of the World Health Organization here in the Gambia. So we will be right back after the break.
Kiumoni arti webi na fitora gol no yawi te non kadi no moƴƴi kiumoni a wawa wadde piiji ɗin fow kala ko wonɗa wattu kala a wawa e hendade mbuuɗi maɗin e o kiumoni app kesong a wawa e nattinde mbuuɗi ma ɗum yaltina soda crédit soda kiw paba soda ko falaɗa te non kadi wawa hen yoɓude himɓe e ko heewi ina wawi kadi nuldude kiumoni yoɓa bilji maɗin te non kadi hendoɗa mbuuɗi ko yaasi nulda himɓe kadi mbuuɗi fi nafitoragol ɗum no weeɓi yahu ka play store ma ɗum ka app store fi wawa fuɗɗade fi heɓugol hen ko laaɓi noddu kiwmoni customer care e 133 kiwmoni suñu kalpe minen udditi lawol ngol si woɓɓe jokki kiwmoni e muruntananne koteke anilañi mobile app sone yaringo a lannayata ndun e sekuwol be keno iɓe dawoda wati o wati e se munafanno ila kodola anin kiwmoni lañi mobile app kuto ise kodo dundino ye kodo fintinde ise crédit ko sanno ye kiw power sang ye feŋol sang ndun fanan ise mol jono anin ku jamalu ise kiwmoni kino yela bilol jo ndun fanan bantala banko se kodo kiyeno ise kodo fanan kino do kotenye pour que munafañinna a download sign play store anin app store ni laftaka kuserengo soto je kiwmoni customer care commandi 133 kiwmoni suñu kalpe ntolle nga silo walang dole mol noma kiwmoni delsina ak sen mobile app bu bes bi orna gawna te it mun nga ko jëfandikoo pour def ci lo bëgga fo mun di ne wattu bu ne mun nga jot sa xaalis ak Q Money mobile app bu bees bii mun ngaa dugal xaalis génnee xaalis jënd si crédit jënd si Q Power jënd loo bugga ak yu bëri mun nga ci yónnee Q Money fay sa bill si jot xaalis bitim réew yónnee xaalis ci noo ko bëggee looy def yomba na downloadal app bi léegi ca Play Store bu dul loolu App Store pour nga door pour am si lu leer koolal Q Money customer care si 133 Q Money suñu kalpe ñoo xaali yoon wi ñeneen toppa.
QMoney is back again with its easy-to-use, secure and convenient mobile app that allows you to carry out all your transactions. No matter where you are or what time it is, you can always access your funds. With the new QMoney app, you can cash in and out, buy credit, buy Q Power, shop, make payments, and so much more. You can also send QMoney, pay bills, receive international remittances, and transfer cash to others. Just download the app from your Play Store or App Store and get started. For more information, call customer care on 133. Q Money, Sinu Kalpe. We innovate, others follow.
QCell mooy suñu boss. QCell mooy suñu boss. QCell mooy suñu boss. Soro. Go. Ebe dawa full network suda tili. QCell. Ni lafta diamla wati jamala mune diata. QCell. Most reliable network jumala geta wati. QCell. Wo quality man nyon soda jam pona manke QCell. Hanibe wulo ni farole kono walante be bako na jala fayola network ko se taria. QCell. Suñu boss. Ñu fi njëkka indi 3G ñu dellu taxi 4G plus and now we bring you 5G. 5G. First and only 5G provider. Itella follow adi doron nesa keno. Gambia bela nyon tawo fele QCell. Ko fasunta buka busi QCell. Itella molti milka kukutol nati Gambia. QCell meta lori la kilianol yele imanyina amanda wala itella ka quality dila dadi ma itelle silo wala wodol mume be keno ma. QCell sunyu boss. QCell sunyu boss. QCell sunyu boss. QCell sunyu boss. Connection be bambandi QCell sunyu boss. QCell most innovative QCell sunyu boss.
Q Money arti webi nafitora gol no yawi te non kadi no moƴƴi Q Money a wawa wadde piiji ɗin fow kala ko wonɗa wattu kala a wawa e hendade mbuudi maɗin e o
We are back. You're watching QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Abalde. Now let's move to the last segment of this program, and we have Dr. Nathan Bachaita, country rep of World Health Organization in the Gambia, and we'll be talking about Africa Vaccination Week, which is a very significant one, and along the side we'll also be talking about World Malaria Day, but we will be focusing more on the Africa Vaccination Week. You are welcome, Mr. Bachaita.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Bachaita, it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Yes. So first of all, how are you feeling, about the Gambia?
Well, I arrived in the Gambia on the 25th of January, 2025.
Okay.
So I've been here almost 3 months.
3 months
and
now.
it's good to be here. I'm happy to be in the Gambia and I feel at home. The smiling coast has done me well.
Of Africa.
So arrived from where?
I am Ugandan,
Okay.
but for the last 7 years, I was working in Zambia. So if you hear me confuse the Gambia and Zambia, you'll understand where it's coming from, because I've been in Zambia, now I'm in the Gambia.
So let's talk about the Africa Vaccination Week. Please take us through how important is this to the World Health Organization?
What is it?
What is it?
First of all, the Africa Vaccination Week is a program between the UN agencies, that is WHO, UNICEF, and other supporters like Gavi and other partners, with the Ministry of Health to lay emphasis on vaccination. you know, it is crucial because it highlights the life-saving power of vaccines and the need to protect our communities, but most especially our children, from preventable diseases. It provides us with an opportunity to ensure that every child, but most especially those who miss their routine vaccinations, receive the necessary immunizations, or PENGU, as we call it here.
PENGU, yes.
They receive PENGU. As we know that our world was disrupted by COVID-19 and so on, so when we look at our coverage of the routine vaccines, the coverage has gone down. So by having this emphasis, we are saying, let us find those who missed the vaccines, who never got any vaccine at all, who are called the zero-dose children, but also those who got their vaccines but have not got all of them, so that they do get them. So this campaign is to focus on that area, but I also need to add that even beyond the dates of the vaccination week, the vaccines are available at the health facilities and other places people go to get them. So if you miss this opportunity, you'll be able to get. But another key event that is happening in this Africa Vaccination Week is to make sure that we promote what we call the HP vaccine, human papilloma vaccine, that is normally given to girls who are 9 years old, and most of those are in school. But we know that at this point our children are on holiday. So during this vaccination week, there will be some activities that will be done in the community on Saturday and Sunday for HPV in particular, and also mobilizing the community, but also vaccinations will be given to the girls in their when they go back to school. So what we are doing right now is working together with the ministry, has worked with the Ministry of Education and all the structures to make sure that the communities are mobilized, to make sure that those girls are vaccinated, on top of making sure that our children also get the routine
I just want to
vaccines.
know, what is the immunization status of the Gambia?
Okay, when I look at the figures, I'll just look at a few vaccines, for example. When we look at, for example, what we call DPT, which is diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus 3, our coverage is 73%. If we look at measles, rubella, we are at about 82, and BCG, which prevents TB, is 72. So when we look at our vaccination coverage or our targets, we want to be above 90%. So our coverage at the moment is below the targets that are set that will ensure that our communities are adequately covered by the vaccines and protected.
That's so this 73, 82%, is it sort of perhaps when we take a regional average or African average, are we average or below or above? I don't know. What's the African average?
The African coverage, we're not doing very well. Some countries are in the 60s, some are lower. So we are not doing badly, but we are the Gambia and we excel at everything we do. So we should, yes, it's good to compare with others, but at least our aim should be we are going to be at the best.
Absolutely. That allows you to situate yourself, don't you, within the broader context.
Exactly.
So talking about the activities, I think you've touched on some of it. So really, what activities are packed, as it were, into this vaccination week?
So for example, today, we are going to have an official launch where the Honorable Minister of Health and other officials will be there, where we shall be telling the whole world, or our Gambian people, that this week is on with us. But also we are having community engagements where our people go to engage with the community. As you know, in the Gambia, our imams, our religious leaders, our chiefs, our local people are very important. They are the gatekeepers, so working together with them to mobilize the communities, that will happen. And then vaccination will continue at the facilities where we normally do that, and also reach out, especially like I've mentioned, to sensitize the communities about vaccination of the girls, both within the community, but also at school on human papilloma vaccine. So those are the activities that we are envisaged.
That's it. But I just wanted to ask you this. Post-COVID, now we've got such neologisms as anti-vaxxers, this new attitude, social media attitudes. But how is it affecting this drive to get 90% vaccinations for some of these required?
So the epidemic of wrong information was famously baptized infodemic.
Yes,
so we had
infodemic.
an infodemic where anti-vaxxers, as you've called him, that have raised vaccine hesitancy. But what we found in a lot of our studies, that although there was vaccine hesitancy, mostly by the adults against getting the vaccine, those same adults always took their children to be vaccinated. So although there is some vaccine hesitancy, but I must say that by and large, parents are more than willing to have their children vaccinated. However, those few who may not cooperate or who may have hesitation, that's why we're using the community structures and building the capacity of the health workers, the community leaders, to be able to talk to them and convince them to go for the vaccines. So yes, the adults were hesitant, but most parents still feel that their children should be vaccinated because they've seen the effect and the impact of that. And here I like telling stories. So if you allow me, I'll tell one story. A few years ago, I was notified that a child had contracted polio in the country where I was working, which was Zambia. So we made a visit to the place where that child was, which was about 1,200 kilometers from the capital city. So we went there.
That's a distance.
That's a distance. And I went to this home where this child was. There was a 3-year-old looking very normal, very well-nourished child. And they told me, this is the child who has had polio. So they tried to tell the child to stand up and walk. That's when I realized that both her legs were gone. She looked normal when seated, but when she tried to stand up, her legs had gone, had been paralyzed. They looked normal, but because of the way polio works, those legs were going to progressively shrink, and she would need to have support and prosthetics to walk for the rest of her life. That story made me very sad. It touched me deeply because just by that child missing the vaccines they were supposed to get, their life history or their life story has changed. But in the Gambia, we don't need to have those stories. We don't need to have a Sise, a Jalo, or a Barrow having that story. We can confine such stories to history. Another story I will give you is that when I was training as a medical doctor, we had a ward called the measles ward, and it was always full. By the time I reached the end of my medical training, measles had disappeared. There were no more cases, and those wards were closed because we had ramped up immunization coverage. Right now, measles has made a comeback, especially in Southern Africa. We are having, and also in America, they're having outbreaks of measles because some children missed their doses. So by making sure that, one, if your child has never been immunized, has never got their pengu, they get the doses. Those that are missed were given. We can consign such stories to history, and they should never occur in the Gambia. So I encourage our parents, I encourage all our stakeholders to encourage our people so that our limited resources can be spent on other things, and our children can be guaranteed a bright future without the limitations that are posed when you get a disease like polio or indeed any other disease, because measles, when complicated, can also blind people or even kill people. So some of these can be consigned to history if we take our children for
So how is
vaccination.
the WHO monitoring vaccine safety and its side effects as well?
One of the things is that, first of all, we work with government. Let me make it clear that the immunization program or the PENGU program is run by government. We're just partners who come alongside to support. So one of the things that has been done is to build the capacity of our colleagues in government and the regulatory authority to be able to monitor adverse events following immunization. Because even if a vaccine has been pronounced safe, once it is being administered in any jurisdiction, you keep following up and making sure that you report on the adverse effects following immunization, so that if they're there, we determine whether they are related to the vaccine or other thing, or that some modifications needs to be made. So the capacity is available in the Gambia to monitor those adverse events and numbers people can call and contact so that we know what is happening. But what we know from the routine vaccines we use, that the adverse effects are very rare. And those that people get are mild. For example, I don't know, all of you are parents here, perhaps. The day you take your child for immunization, that night you don't sleep, isn't it? Because the child gets a fever, all right? But then it recovers. But some may get other very rare conditions, but the capacity to detect them and also address them and treat them effectively is available in the Gambia.
Exactly. I mean, what efforts are we doing, I mean, to make sure these vaccines, they get to the farthest village in the Gambia?
That's a really good question. I think WHO, working with our sister agency, UNICEF, and of course working with government, we've worked on, one, building the infrastructure. As you know, most vaccines must be kept at a certain temperature, what we call the cold chain. So the cold chain has been expanded and investments have been made, of course, supported by our partner Gavi, all right? The Gavi, the vaccine alliance, whatever, to make sure that we have a good cold chain. The second thing also is that the capacity of health workers to both know about the vaccines they're giving, deliver them safely, and also monitor adverse events has been built up. And also the infrastructure at the different health facilities built to make sure that vaccines can be given safely to those who need them. But of course, making sure also the vaccines are available. So Gavi plus government make sure that vaccines are available to the farthest person. The good thing with the Gambia, we may be the smallest country, but also I think we've done good in making sure we try to access, to provide people to be able to access health facilities within a shorter distance than many other countries I know. So that has been done, and whoever needs the vaccine, even those difficult to reach, I think can reach them, and there are modifications sometimes that are made to reach them, but by and large most people can access them.
Yes, and I was just wondering, you sort of slightly touched on it, some of these structural deficits. I wonder, of course, I think our biggest vulnerability is if you were to have an outbreak of a new disease that requires vaccination, as our experience in COVID-19 demonstrate. But post-COVID, have we seen sort of, or do you sense that there's a reorientation of how government thinks? We are working on now to fix these structural deficits. Have we really learned the lessons of COVID, the vulnerability? We were not manufacturing, having to rely on others, and you would be the last to be given anything, that sort of thing. Have we woken up, you reckon?
I am not government, I'm WHO.
Granted, but what do you observe,
working
the interaction?
A lot of lessons have been learned out of the COVID outbreak. Right now, countries have just agreed on a pandemic agreement that will be approved at the World Health Assembly, that will ensure that some of those things we observed under COVID are dealt with. But apart from the pandemic agreement, there is also the fact that COVID-19 revealed a number of issues that we needed to have strong health systems, so there were some health system challenges that were revealed, and that as much as possible, we need to integrate services, all right? And make sure that at the primary health care level, the first point of contact, these services are available. So based on those lessons, everybody realizes that having stronger health systems that have integrated services are going to make sure that the services reach the people who need them. Of course, when it comes to the manufacturing you are talking about and so on, there are a lot of initiatives that have come up where we want to increase the ability of countries in our region to manufacture medicines, to manufacture vaccines, but a lot of work needs to be done to the point where you can be able to do that.
Yes. So I guess this is going to be the final question, Mr. Mboj. Or do you have any other?
No.
All right. So what is your final message to Gambian parents this week?
My final message to Gambian parents this week is that take your child to receive the vaccines they need so that for the rest of their life, they never have to worry about the vaccine preventable diseases. That way, you give your child a great start in life so that that child grows up healthy and able to fulfill their God-given potential.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Chaita, for talking to us on QTV this morning, and we hope to engage you more in the future. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Mamadou Mboj, this is all we have.
Is that it?
Yes.
I thought we were going to discuss World Malaria Day. So what happened to that?
We've already exhausted the whole time.
Okay, well,
Yes.
we'll discuss it
Probably
another day.
another day.
Okay,
Yeah.
cheers.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so viewers, this is all we have. Thank you very much for following QTV this morning throughout the week. And until we come here again next week, enjoy the rest of our programs. Have a wonderful day.